All right. Well, welcome everyone, and welcome to this extraordinary conversation with two heroes of mine, two unbelievable humans that have shattered the stigma, that pretty much gave the middle finger to shame and said it's okay to talk about it. They constantly turn around and they say, I hear you, I see you. And they make this sometimes arduous struggle just a little less scary. So I am beyond honored to welcome Jameela Jamil and Demi Lovato to this very important and necessary conversation. So Jamil, I'm going to start with you. Welcome. I'm so happy that you are here. I'm so happy to have you in our realm, in our atmosphere, and also to say again, congratulations. I know that we gave you our Changemaker Award for our 20th anniversary, just for doing everything that you've done. So welcome. I'm going to give you an opportunity to say a few words, and then we'll welcome our other guest.
What do you mean, say a few words? Do I have to give a speech?
No, whatever you feel.
Okay, fine. Well, no, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for the work that you do. And also, Demi, you know how I feel about how much I love the work you do and how much your work has inspired my work. Because, as I've said to you many times before, you were the first person in your position who ever came out and spoke with no shame, with no stigma, regardless of whether or not you're carrying your own inside. You made a whole generation feel less alone, and I was one of those people. And so I don't think I would do what I do if you hadn't done what you've been doing from a way younger age than I started.
Oh my gosh.
To both of you.
Thank you. That means everything to me. Should I wait for my intro?
Go right in.
Okay. Well,
Can you just give us your name and tell us what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Demi, and I really like to sing. And sometimes I host this podcast. Not this one. I'm in my podcast room. Anyways, I thank you for having me. I have had my experiences with eating disorders, and I am now in recovery, and it is an honor to be here, but it's also, Jameela, I look up to you, and I just appreciate all that you do too. So thank you.
Thank you both so much. And first, I just wanted to Demi, say thank you for coming out as your true self. I will tell you that in the last few weeks, I've had people in my personal life that have taken your step and have been able to come into who they have always been destined to be. And I think that that's why this conversation is so important, is because when folks like the both of you have the courage to do what you do and then be very open and public about it, it makes it okay for other folks. And I just want to say how incredibly scary it must be for you to do that. And I want to say thank you, because there are folks that I care very deeply about that have been able to step into who they've always wanted and been destined to be. So cheers to that.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing. So I wanted to really start off our conversation, and Demi, I'd love to ask you first. So you're both humans that are in recovery or recovering, whatever ending of the word recover you want to use, or before. We live in a world that's really like shredded with diet culture, with fat phobia, that's very diet centric. From the latest teas that Jamil, I know I've heard you talk about many times, to
I've never spoken about it.
Ever. But how does diet culture affect your life in recovery? Because I know it does for me. So I would love to ask you that question first.
Well, I would say, how does diet culture affect my recovery today? I would love to say that my eating disorder has been very straightforward, but it hasn't. There have been times where I have felt very comfortable in my skin. There have been times where I felt like I don't match the body that I have. because I just don't, I feel so disconnected. And some days are easier than others. You know, I go through periods of times that I can say I don't think about food whatsoever, but then I go through periods of time where it's all I think about. And I think that is my journey with my eating disorder, and my recovery has looked very different at many different times. And what I can say is that diet culture has put so much pressure on so many people in this world today. But I think there was something about when I was able to cut the cords between me and diet culture. That was, I think, the catalyst of beginning to feel much more free and my eating disorder. You know, when I realized that the scale didn't define me, when I realized that my gene size doesn't define me, or the type of exercise that I do, it just, those things, I don't know, when I released the shackles of the diet culture and the pressures that they put on me, that's when I started to feel freedom.
100%. I will tell you that, you know, unfortunately, you know, we hear that, like, you know, football is America's favorite pastime. I don't think that. I think it's absolutely diet talk and body shaming and fat phobia. And, you know, I think that for me, as someone of lived experience, like, it's still hard sometimes. Like, a lot of times, like, I'll be okay, but then, like, I'll go to a restaurant and then there's damn calories on a menu, which, you know, it starts even if I wasn't in that space, it starts the conversation going again in my head. And it's, you know, I'm able to, you know, say, you know what, I don't need to do this. I can move on. But for me, I don't see it in my lens anymore. I see it for people that are in the midst of their struggle, that are sitting there, that are going to decide whether or not to nourish, how they're going to nourish from a number, whether, like you said, like a scale or calories. And that's why, Jameela, I thought it was so genius when you came out with, like, the I weigh movement and the idea of, you know, like, what do you weigh? And let's not talk about numbers, because I think it's really unbelievable that we live in a world where even things where people have to go on a certain eating habit or an eating style for medical needs, even that is being hijacked and commandeered by the diet industry, whether it's they can't have gluten because they're celiac, but then no, we take that as like a weight loss mechanism, or diabetes and not having sugar. So, Jameela, same question for you. How has all of, like, the diet talk affected your recovery?
So it made my recovery almost impossible for about 20 years, because you just couldn't get away from it. And, you know, and then God, times that by 100 when you enter the industry like mine, where you're congratulated for having an eating disorder, where it's looked at as discipline. You know, denying yourself of your basic human needs is looked at as something that other people are jealous of. You know, so it's been really, really toxic for me for a really long time. And what was fabulous about my life is that in the last 3 years, having found I Weigh, you know, I set out to try and, you know, help others, but they ended up saving my life, because now when I come across literally any kind of diet culture, because of I Weigh existing, and because of the advocacy that I Weigh stands for, now when I see any kind of thing of diet culture, I never look at it as something that's about me. I'm truly just like, enemy. And then I just go into, like, defense and attack mode and just decide to destroy it, not on just behalf of myself and the 20 years of my life that got taken away by an eating disorder, but on behalf of all the lives that I would love to preventatively stop from wasting as much time as I did. So now it just, like, invigorates my fight and infuriates me. But before I Weigh, it used to drag me back into even something as simple as someone complimenting your weight loss, or complimenting someone else's weight loss, or commenting on someone else's body, or commenting on their own body. Even something as simple as that used to drag me back into now thinking about my body, and, oh, if they think I look good now, is that because I looked bad all along before? And now if I gain any weight again, it's just this cycle of nonsense, this inner bully that we all have, that just, as you referred to earlier before we got onto this, as the shitty committee, mine was very strong and powerful and convincing. And so therefore I can't imagine what growing up on the internet has been like. I can't imagine what a pandemic where TikTok adverts are coming at you every 15 to 30 seconds with fasting apps, an unregulated fast without a doctor monitoring you is incredibly dangerous, and a very fast and steep slippery slope into eating disorders. I can't imagine seeing these altered, photoshopped bodies in between all of these adverts for diet products and fasting apps. All of which, I'm just going to be quick with this, but when you understand the system of it, you feel so sickened by it, of the fact that capitalism can only exist if we remain unhappy, because unhappy people buy stuff to fix what they've been told is broken. So if they continuously keep telling us that there's something wrong with us, we're broken. If you look at women in particular and their body types, but this is also expanding into all genders now. If you're like, oh, this body type is out now, let's take a woman, for example. Now, before we wanted you to be a size 0, but now we want you to still be a size 0 at your waist, but we want you to have long, skinny legs, but with thick thighs, and a big bottom, but with big breasts, but skinny arms. And we want you to have a thin face, but it should never look old, which just isn't science. That's not science. Yeah. And so if you keep setting these impossible goals for people, they'll keep feeling bad about themselves, and therefore they'll go out and just keep buying things. And so it's all just a system of these greedy fucks at the top who are trying to manipulate us into buying their products that we don't need, that are actually killing ourselves. 24,000 kids a year admitted to the emergency room over diet and detox products just in America alone. Yeah, I can't imagine what it's been like being at home with all these diet companies targeting you as a teenager. I don't think I would have survived. Kudos to all of the kids out there who are still alive and still being able to fight this every day.
100%. I remember I was meeting with an editor-in-chief of a very well-known magazine about 15 years ago. And I said, why couldn't you just do an episode, an issue of a magazine that told humans how amazing they are and bolstered their self-esteem? And they looked at me and they said, we won't be able to sell anything. And it was that moment of like, oh my goodness, like it's really, when you peel back the layers, when you pull back the curtain, they are 100%, they're capitalizing on our misery, which we know that in the US, we have 9% of our entire population in this country that will experience an eating disorder in their lifetime. Every 52 minutes, someone dies as a direct result of their eating disorder. And I will tell you that it never seeks to take the wind out of me. I just right before this podcast, I got a message that a family that we were helping, that we have been helping, they lost their daughter this morning, young.
Sorry.
And, it to me, like what you talked about, it makes me rageful, and it does make me rageful. And that for me, that was, I have to attest the Alliance for keeping me alive, for doing the work that we do, and almost becoming more of, and I hate to use this term, but like this mama bear over society of like, this is not okay. People struggling in silence is not okay. Individuals not having access to care is not okay, because treatment is a necessity. It should not be a privilege. And where we live, it's a privilege because only 1 in 3 people actually get access to care. And we know that with care and proper care and step down, people get better, and then they can turn around and look at these ads for what they are, as just some bullshit opportunity to make us feel bad about ourselves.
100%. And also the fact that eating disorders weren't taken seriously before people like Demi or people like myself and other wonderful like charities and individuals started speaking out that an eating disorder is not like a vain, gendered, specific, racial background kind of vanity project. It's the number one killer of any mental health disorder. And I think if you include, I think opioid deaths are the only thing that are more prevalent than eating disorder deaths. And they're not exactly the same, because one is a mental illness and the other one isn't necessarily. But the point is that that's how serious it is. Look at how seriously we talk about opioid issues and opioid deaths. And we have eating disorders right behind that. We don't take it seriously enough. And so I think, that's part of why I get a little bit feisty and fiery, especially when I see my peers participate in eating disorder culture, because kids are dying.
Well, I literally was one of those, almost was one of those opioid deaths. And I can tell you that it wasn't my addiction that led me. I would say that my primary problem my entire life has been my eating disorder. Mm-hmm. And so even if some of those numbers their deaths are caused by an opioid overdose, we don't know how many of those people still struggled with an eating disorder. And that's where the lines get really blurry is, they go hand in hand. And a lot of times my depression has taken over. When I OD'd, I was struggling so much with my eating disorder that I turned to substances to cope. And so a lot of people don't realize that either. And and it's, yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you brought that up, because 50% of individuals that experience eating disorders also experience a substance use disorder. And exactly what you shared is, you're using food, you're using alcohol, you're using drugs to maladaptively cope with the anxiety, with the depression, with the trauma, with everything else, with, these, it makes me so fired up, because I tell people all the time, I never woke up one morning, looked out the window in sunny West Palm Beach, Florida, and said, it's a beautiful day. I think I'm going to have anorexia nervosa today. And yet people have this idea, this misconception. Jamila, you just said that so well, is I didn't choose to have an eating disorder.
It's not a hobby. It's treated like a hobby.
That's exactly right. And I will tell you, even this year, we just had Mental Health Awareness Month, and thank you so much, Demi, for partnering with us on this really amazing campaign. But I can't even tell you both how difficult it was to even get eating disorders added to the table for mental health. And of course, I'm considered the squeaky wheel in our field, because I'm who's going to talk if we're not going to talk? And that's really how I feel is, it's they talk about every single other mental illness diagnosis, but not eating disorders. And just like you said, Jamila, the number one psychiatric death, just second to opioid addiction. And yet we're not having conversations. And so I think this is a perfect segue into my next question. And Demi, would love to throw this to you, is why has it been so important to you to be so open? Why does it matter to you?
I guess why it matters to me is my life has been played out in front of the media since I was 14, 15. And so there's been a ton of perceptions and opinions placed on me without me even getting a say. And so I think anytime I have, I care so much, and that's why it's so important for me to share how I'm feeling. And, I will say that I experienced, something as recently in April. I had a situation where I went to a frozen yogurt shop and I felt very triggered. And I wanted to use that experience as a teaching tool of hey, this is where I felt triggered. But because I was so rageful and emotional about it too, it went about the wrong way. And, when I kind of kept having to ask myself during that time, because the reception with the way that I handled it was, granted, I did not handle it right. The reception wasn't, obviously great, because I didn't handle it right. But I kept wanting to explain myself. And because I kept asking myself, why do you talk about this? If people are going to get mad at you for saying stuff, why is it important to you? Mm-hmm. And I kept having to bring myself back to, because I don't want my 12-year-old self to walk into any frozen yogurt store and feel like they're triggered, whether it's because that was a section that was for medical needs or dietary restriction, for medical needs. I just never wanted my 12-year-old self to ever walk into a store again and feel the same way that set me up for the rest of my life to have an eating disorder like it has. My eating disorder is something that I don't know if I will ever completely heal from, because I don't know that you can, to be totally honest, but it does get easier. And if you keep reminding yourself of why it's important to you, if I could go back in time and give my inner child all of those years back of being a kid or being a teenager and living my life as a teenager or child should, without thinking of food, like that's why I keep fighting for it. That's what I keep advocating for.
And thank you for that beautiful, vulnerable answer. And I will tell you that what you shared is something that so many of us experience every time we walk into a place where we're told, eat this, not that. This is bad for you. This is good for you. And it brings up that rhetoric, or, going back to like that shitty committee telling us that there's food rules, or they're good foods versus bad foods. And so I remember reading about it and thinking, that's how I feel whenever I go to a restaurant with calories on it, right?
Yes.
It's that reminder. And you know what? Like I have next month, I have a 5-year-old daughter until she tells me differently. And when I found out I was having a girl, I sobbed for 3 days. And I know that eating disorders affect all genders, like what Jameela said. But we also know that there's a higher percentage in female identifying individuals, because I want better for her. I am a child of a Holocaust survivor. So I had transgenerational trauma in my family, and I was a professional ballet dancer. And I always grew up with this, eat this, not that, be good, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be perfect, because, I was a first generation immigrant. And more than anything, and I think that, that's why, like, I almost want to cry when you just said that, Demi. Is like, I want to go back to that 12-year-old, because that's when my eating disorder started, and said, you know what, you deserve so much better than this, and I think that's why I've always connected to the both of you so much. And because it's creating opportunities for conversations so that individuals like my child, they'll have it different. They'll have it easier. They'll have their own shit to deal with. My kid will absolutely be in therapy. There's not even a question, but we need to do better for them. So I guess, Jameela, I would ask you the same question: is why do you speak up so beautifully and eloquently and amazingly?
I mean, I don't always speak up eloquently or beautifully or amazingly, but I do speak up often. I mean, you said squeaky wheel, and I was like, I think Demi and I can both relate to that terminology. Squeakiest wheels. we're like a bicycle together. But I was going to say that for me, one of the main reasons I do it is very selfish. I just want to become really famous. No, I'm joking. I want to recycle all of that pain and 20 wasted years into something that means something. If it'll feel like then I didn't waste all of that time and all of those years, like they happened for a reason, and I did something with them that was meaningful and prevented maybe someone else from falling into that same trap. Like if I can create I don't know, like a kind of a get out guide for someone else, then it makes me kind of grateful that I had those horrible experiences. As weird as the thing as that is to say, it's like, well, it's helped me understand my community, and it's helped me reach people in a way that I never could have, from heart to heart, because they know what I'm saying is real. And so, you know what? I'm glad I survived all of that, as hard as it was, because I'm able to do this meaningful thing now. And so, I feel very passionately about it because I was the same age. I was 11, I think, 11 when it started and 12 when it really took hold of me. It's amazing how that's around the age, like just before puberty, where our bodies are changing beyond our control and where society starts to treat us as if we're sentient adults at such a young age. But I really passionately would like to do everything I can to stop it in its tracks, because you totally can recover from eating disorders, but the statistics show that it's incredibly difficult to be completely free. Something like, I think, a third of people will ever be completely free of an eating disorder once it starts.
Yeah, and I think that's because people don't get access to care and treatment, and again, like it actually brings me to my next question, is this idea of community. At the Alliance, we had 23 in-person support groups across the country for individuals that came into. We have therapist-led groups, and overnight we had to shift to virtual. And the most incredible thing happened is that we've been able to reach out to folks in every state in the country and in 48 countries around the world. And it's been an opportunity to provide access. We have this amazing human. He identifies as a transgender male. He lives in Saudi Arabia. He cannot be himself, but he can be himself on these calls. And it's been this beautiful community of 100+ people on these support group calls. And I think information changes, healing happens when you're in community, when you can be in a room where people speak your language, when you can be seen and heard. So I would love to ask both of you, because you've created this incredible community with I Weigh, and then through Demi with your just the community behind you.
It's just 100 million people. It's not that big a deal. So.
No big deal.
Actually, let's just keep talking about my one. It's got 3.3 million. So this is just a tiny 100 million. Yeah.
And I will tell you, we've gotten so many referrals from I Weigh. Like, I just need to tell you that folks have been
very sweet.
No, seriously, but what does community mean to you, and why is it important? Why do you think it's important?
Community helps you not only be not gaslit by society, but not gaslight yourself. It's confirmation of what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, and community is how I was able to realize, oh, wait, so I feel this way, and so does everyone else I know. And we've all collectively been through this thing. And these are the things that are happening in our society that seem to correlate directly with how we all feel, be that our control being taken away, our autonomy, our bodily autonomy being taken away, or the stuff regarding more aesthetic-based reasons for having an eating disorder. There are many different roads to an eating disorder, and they're not always about the way that you look. But if we're all going through the same thing, surely there's something wrong with our system. Surely there's a reason we're not all getting better, younger. And so that is the power of community for me, is the power to share stories, to allow stories to travel, and to help individuals feel seen, feel heard, feel understood, feel less alone, and feel certain of their experience. And therefore, we're able to come up with plans together. So I get a lot of credit for if I get a policy changed, or if I get a company to take something down, or if I get an individual to stop selling diet products. Like, whatever people may say about me, there are way less celebrities, like big A-list celebrities, selling diet products. And that is in no small part because of this guy and Demi and Demi's work, and like the amazing activists out there in the world. But when I get credited for that, I'm only one person. It's because of the 1.3 million people behind me and I Weigh who sign my petitions, who will storm the comment section of some massive clothing company that are being exclusionary, or will help me raise awareness towards an individual who is being damaging in their behavior. Like, a whole community behind me got all of that done. I could never have done all of this with I Weigh, or changed policies, or had bills, or even I wouldn't even be working with you. Now you wouldn't be aware of who I am if it wasn't for my loud, tenacious, rude, wonderful, passionate following who I learned so much from. Everything I know, I learned from them.
Without a doubt. And Demi, how was community important to you?
Community is important. Like she said, it's important to have community so that you don't feel gaslit by, everyone else and yourself. I think that it also helps, it helps to feel validated, to have people that are in your circle that know what you're going through too, so that, when you do feel misunderstood online because of the way you handled something, you can call up one of your friends named Jameela and be like, hey, I'm having a really hard time this week. And how can, I can ask my friend for advice, and how would you go about this? What do you think? Am I in my head? Am I being too triggered, or whatever it is? And it's like, to have that soundboard to bounce something off of has been really, really helpful. And because because had I not called Jameela during that week, mm-hmm. To be honest, where my head went was, well, if I were to just listen to people on the internet, it's people saying that maybe I am invalidated for walking in there and feeling that way, right? So then I would have listened to mm-hmm. that invalidation over my own authentic reaction. And therefore, I may have listened to my eating disorder over what was best for my well-being. And when you have people in a community around you that are like, hey, I know what you want to do right now is listen to whoever or whatever, but to have people in your corner that are rooting for you and still supporting you and just being like, whatever you need, I'm here to support you. It's been really, really rewarding, and it's kept me in recovery, to be honest.
Yeah. But also Demi receives a lot of people, and so do I, but I don't have as big a platform as Demi has, who say, oh, you should just stop speaking on issues. And so they constantly discourage you from continuing to use your giant platform to help. And I think that I consider my role as part of your a part of your support network is to always prioritize that you never take on more than is good for your mental health, to never make you feel like you have to be the spokesperson for all different mental health issues or all different social justice issues, but at the same time to make sure that you know that I see your growth, and even if you don't say something in the perfect way, or if I don't say something in the perfect way, it doesn't invalidate what we're trying to do. It doesn't invalidate our hearts. It doesn't mean we can't improve tomorrow and be better tomorrow than we were today. And so my job is to remind you that what you do is so valuable and has helped so many people, and that fuck what happened today, say sorry, move on, keep doing the amazing work you've been doing for 10 years. The way that people try to make someone feel as though 10 years of work is erased because of one micro mistake. And we particularly do it if we identify someone as a woman, regardless however they may identify. Again, it's more prevalent for them. We are so discouraging and so erasing. You cannot erase my good work. You don't get to decide whether my good work for 10 years or how many thousands or millions, in Demi's case, of people have been helped because of the things that I put myself on the line for. You don't get to tell me when to give up. And so that's my job, I feel like, to remind you of that the internet doesn't get to decide whether or not you helped millions of children or when you're supposed to stop. You helped me, love you.
You helped me so much. Love you.
100%. I just, I think that what you just said, Jameela, is such a perfect, beautiful example of the journey to recovery. It's not sunshine, bunnies, and rainbows. I think a therapist said this to me years ago, and she's like, Johanna, you don't recover to utopia, you recover to life. And life is not sunshine, bunnies, and rainbows. It's messy, and it's hard, and it's beautiful. And what you do today, if you have a slip tomorrow, it doesn't negate what you do today. What you did today is what you did today. And I will echo what Jameela said. I will tell you, Demi, that I have someone in my life who has become my little sister, and I get teary-eyed talking to her, that you saved her life. And I don't say that lightly. And I need to let you know about her because she is in recovery now. And she graduated from college, and she's going to be an eating disorder clinician, and she works at the now. And so that is the power of you. So whatever people write about you, whatever, because, I will tell you that I started this organization at 21, where it wasn't cool and hip to be young and to start something. And I was working 3 jobs and selling bullshit clothing and waiting in tables because I needed to make this organization happen. So one day we could have conversations like this. Okay. And I will tell you what the both of you have done is you've created opportunities for people to know that it's okay to talk about this. And it's these opportunities of community where, folks that are, trans, non-binary, they have no parents, they're homeless. They know that they belong, and they know that they're seen and heard. And I will tell you, there's nothing more beautiful and important than that. So please both never stop what you're doing. And y'all are changing the world a starfish at a time. And I will tell you that if y'all know about the starfish story, that is my North Star, that we can't help everyone, but we do make differences to the ones that we do help. And so I know that we're starting to end on time, but I just want to ask you all 2 more questions. And I want to go back to, I was listening to your podcast recently, Demi, with Glennon, who I can't even say enough about.
Yes.
And you said something at the end that I pulled into my parking spot at work and I started sobbing because I do that a lot. And you said, for the person that needs to hear it, know that it gets better. And I think both of you have said that individually, time after time. The first therapist I went to go see when I wanted to sort of peek around the corner at this thing called recovery, I shared with her my story, and she looked at me and she goes, Johanna, I'm really happy you're here, and I need you to know that you'll be struggling with this for the rest of your life. And I looked at her and I said, well, why the fuck am I here? That was like my exact words to her. And I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but in that moment, I needed someone to tell me that it gets better. And whether it's you're recovering or in recovery or recovered or in remission or living your life beyond your eating disorder, I so desperately, and that's the work that has, kept me going for 20 plus years, that it gets better, that the hell that you're living in this moment does not have to continue. So if you could go back to you in the midst of your struggle, what would you say to you, Demi? What would you say to just help you keep on moving forward?
One day you're going to plan vacations to whatever the part of the world that you want to go to. And you're not going to worry about being in a bikini or a one piece or wearing clothes into the ocean. You're going to find the freedom to do whatever it is you want to do while feeling authentic to who you are. I recently went on a vacation to Hawaii. Hawaii was someplace that I had never really taken a vacation before because there's always a lot of paparazzi in Hawaii. And finally, I went with a group of friends, one of which who is like a model. And I was able to, after years in the past of like crafting my vacations a certain way, not wanting to be triggered by the people that were on the trip with me, or, not making sure that I went to a place where there was no paparazzi or, none of that mattered anymore. I just went to a place where I wanted to with a group of people that I wanted to go with, and I felt free. And it's moments like that keep me in recovery, because you're right. Like I said earlier, I don't know if I'm ever going to be fully recovered, but it's the fact that I spent all last summer in a bathing suit and didn't even flinch about it. That kind of freedom is worth fighting every day of my life for.
Amazing. Amazing. Jameela, what would you say to baby Jameela?
I'd say a few things. One, I'd beg her not to spend the next 20 years of her life having an eating disorder and tell her what a profound waste of time it is, and that even when she gets to her goal weight, she will not fill that void. She will not feel that happiness that she thought she would feel when she finally got there. Nothing would change. The pain wouldn't go away. So stop striving towards that. Don't place your happiness outside of yourself, especially not into the praying arms of a weighing scale. The other thing I would say to her is, don't you dare say anything to yourself that you wouldn't tolerate being said to someone that you care about or love or respect. If you're not allowed to say it to them, if no one's allowed to say that to them, you're not allowed to say it to yourself. Because it's amazing what we'll tolerate ourselves saying to us. It's amazing what we'll tolerate other people saying to us. It's amazing what we'll tolerate our family members saying to us, or our favorite celebrities saying to us about our bodies. Enough. And I have one final thing that I want to say just to young people who might be watching this, which is that online is a really dangerous space right now. And so I really want you to be very protective, practice self-defense of the mind. And I really want you to practice block, mute, delete, repeat. Do not feel bad. Do not worry about not being in tune with everything that's happening in pop culture. Anyone who makes you feel triggered about your body or yourself or your life or your sexuality or your gender or whatever, whoever makes you feel triggered, it doesn't matter whether or not you are allowed to feel triggered or not. If you feel bad looking at any kind of account or any kind of individual, block them out. If you have a family member who's making you feel bad about yourself, block them out. I have stopped speaking to family members sometimes for like 6 years or more if they're not willing to meet me at my boundary of respect. Mm-hmm. So just take, as a young person growing up today, because my 12-year-old self didn't have to contend with social media, protect your mind, because it's the single greatest investment you'll ever make is the one you make into your mental health. That's it.
It's a mic drop moment, and she's just
totally.
I'll leave, guys. I'll see you guys later.
I can't even tell you just how many times over this pandemic I've told people that you don't have to follow certain people. You don't have to you don't have to be okay with folks bulldozing your boundaries. And I think just having you say that once again is just this beautiful reminder that, for so many of us that are seeking control, right, when that are experiencing eating disorders, this is one thing that we can do. This is a boundary we can set. This is a way that we can be, we can be accountable to ourselves and stay healthy. So I really want to, more than anything, just to whoever that's watching this today, just to remind everyone that if you are in the depths of your struggle, that there is help, that there is hope, that recovery is possible. And although it's not sunshine bunnies and rainbows, it's messy and beautiful and amazing. And, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to get help. We're not meant to do this alone. We're not meant to will eating disorders away, just like we're not meant to will cancer away or will a broken bone. And just because we need help doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us less than. It makes us badasses because we're able to show up for what we need. And so my cup is just completely full. I've worked for a very long time in this community. I will tell you that, we talk about vacations. I'm like, don't do that much. And I also remember how important it is to have people like you just show up and use your voice, because I will tell you, undoubtedly, there's going to be folks that are going to be watching this, that are going to pick up the phone, that are going to go online, that are going to reach out for help. And so, going back to my favorite story of all time, please know that you always do and continue to throw starfish back and make a difference to so many. So, Demi, Jameela, thank you so, so much for this incredible
conversation.
Thank you.
Needs any resources, please contact the Alliance. You're the leading nonprofit organization for eating disorders, for support, for education, and for referrals. So thank you both so much. Please take care. Be safe.